Oh my God, you just threw an onion at me. When you cut them, they can make you cry. It normally happens when you squash the onion with a blunt knife. So I hate to tell you, but if you're crying all the time with your onions, you probably need to sharpen your knives. Leave the root on because it makes cutting the onion way easier. Because we gave ourselves a nice flat side, it means that the onion will sit nice and still. If you want to slice, you're just going to pull your knife straight through from top to bottom, just like that. Let me show you how we dice it. Long, thin strips down the onion, then long strokes of your blade, cut towards the root, will get you all the way into the onion, turn it over, and then you are dicing. You can get a perfect dice really simply, a perfect slice really simply, and look at me, I'm not crying. One of the things our chefs learn about when we go to school is all the different knife cuts. If you want to take something and cut it into a julienne, all you will do is very thin slices like this. Then you'll turn it and you'll cut them into really, really fine strips. So that's great for a stir fry, great for when you want lots of texture. Now, if you want to do batons, is cutting it a little thicker and then you push them all to your knife. Keep the tip of your blade anchored on the board, and then the back of the knife is where you're actually doing your chopping. If you want to take that one step further and turn that into a dice, you turn it and you just cut straight on through. You might hear of a hachée or mincing of vegetables, and this is when you want the vegetable to disappear in the dish. We go back across and we're doing a fine mince or a really fine dice. So here we've got julienne. The baton, obviously much more robust in its size and its shape. That turns into this if you dice it, and this turns into that. So that's a dice, this is a hachée. Just take your time, it's not a rush. Don't try and be like the guys you see on TV. Speed will come with experience. So just take your time and you'll get beautiful knife cuts and your vegetables will really jump and stand out when you cook them with them. I love cutting a julienne, but I know lots of you are like, that's way too difficult and I'm not gonna try it. I've got something for you. Got a peeler, which on the other side is a julienne cutter. Peel your carrot just like that, and switch it over to the julienne side, and you're just going to go on through your carrot, just like this. You could turn that into a really gorgeous salad. It could replace noodles if you're going gluten-free. It's a great little tool. Here's a quick little tip on cleaning as you go. Keeping your kitchen clean and organised when you're cooking in it is so important. It starts with having a container for everything, but then you also need to have a little towel. I always have one damp and one dry. It's a really useful tool. You don't need 100 towels. I always start by opening it up, folding it in half, doing the same thing. So then you start with 1, 2, 3, 4. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, once you go through cleaning 20 towels at the end of a cooking session, you'll learn how to fold your towels really well and get the most out of them. Let's talk dressings. All you need to make a good dressing is a bowl and a whisk. And what we're going to do is emulsify 2 different components, an acid and a fat. Those 2 things normally want to stay far away from each other, but what we're going to do is force them to be friends. You start off with the acid, and then you can flavor your dressing or vinaigrette with anything you want. Maybe you want to add a little Dijon mustard, you might want to add a little honey, some shallots, some garlic, some different herbs. Then you mix, and in a thin stream, you're going to pour some olive oil, and you whisk at the same time. It's like 1 part vinegar to about 3 or 4 parts oil. The appearance is going to be creamy. You're going to season it with a little kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper. The right way to taste a dressing is getting yourself a leaf, dipping it in. Whoa, that's good. So often people will make a vinaigrette and they'll taste it and be like, it's too vinegary. They'll add more oil. And then when they toss the salad with the vinaigrette, they're like, it still doesn't taste right. That's because you didn't taste it the first time on a leaf, because you need to make the vinaigrette way more powerful than you think you'll need it to be. This is a zester. This is a lemon. The oil in the lemon, those essential oils, are in the skin. Good zester is always one that takes off just a little bit. It's really quite light. Now, if I was to concentrate and just go in one spot, I'm going to end up with more of the pith than the zest. So you want the zest for that nice, bright, sour flavor. The pith will have more bitterness. So that's something you want to avoid. All it is a shape that has 3 sides. So I'm going to break down how you do it. I've got tomato and chili pepper jam. I've got 2 spoons. Rinse them in slightly warm water. Pick up just enough to fill your spoon, and then you take it off that spoon with the other spoon. Keep going from one spoon to the next until you get that wonderful shape. 1, 2, and of course underneath are the 3 sides. But a mousse or a puree or even a soft cheese can be quenelled very, very easily. I think it looks a little nicer than just a dollop of something. Now the blowtorch is how we start our fire here at Gwen, but if you want to get a little char and a little sweetness into an otherwise quite acidic cheese like a goat's cheese, here's a little tip. Sprinkle it really lightly with a little demerara sugar, which has a lovely flavour. You grab your blowtorch, you get to caramelize the sugar without melting goat's cheese. It gives it a nice crisp crust. I'm going to break a little piece off, just make sure that sugar's set first. Delicious. Oysters. If you open them at home, you need a towel. What you're going to use is a thing called an oyster knife, but you don't want to push it into your hand. Just put the oyster on your towel. I always give it a tap. Let him know I'm coming. You fold that towel over onto the oyster, wiggle your oyster knife in to that little hinge. Once you feel like you've got a nice foothold, you just pop it. What you're trying not to do is just tear it off, because then you'll break the oyster. If that's the cup and that's the shell, you're going to stick your knife in here and you're just going to sever the oyster. I like to turn the oyster over, so you just flip him over like that. And then your oyster is ready to eat, bottoms up. Scallops or scallops, depends where you're from. Want to make sure they smell really sweet. They never should smell funky or fishy. They should just smell lightly of the ocean. You always have the service side, so there'll always be one side bigger and one side smaller. You want where it holds onto the cup because there's more of it. It makes the scallop look slightly bigger and fuller, so it's a better presentation. I always cook the service side first, so that bigger side goes into the pan first. You only ever turn scallops once, get it beautiful and golden brown. Turn it one time and it's done. Pop them straight onto your service tray. This is a ribeye. When you're talking about a ribeye, this is the longimus dorsi, and this little crescent-shaped muscle is the spinalis dorsi. Both those muscles eat quite differently, but are absolutely delicious. So this is a beautifully dry-aged, heavily marbled ribeye. Let me show you what one from the store might look like. Quite different, right? You can see it's a little pinker in color, much less of that marbling or intermuscular fat. It's also very large. It's come off a larger animal, usually would mean that it is older and probably a little tougher. The other thing that's missing from this is that spinalis. That's really delicious. So I think that's a bit of a bummer. It's probably just a little further up the primal. You're really getting more of a New York than you are a ribeye. Always look for those two muscles and look for that beautiful marbling all the way through. Aging beef, it is a big question. Dry aging or wet aging? Let me explain it. This is wet aged. It normally comes in a package like this. A lot of the moisture stays in the beef, right? So it's going to give you a really juicy end result, although there's not much flavor development from that aging process. Now, all beef is aged. You can't eat it immediately. It can't be too fresh. If it is, it's very fibrous and very tough. If you dry age, and here's an example of a primal, this is the whole ribeye that has been dry aged. There's a little mold growth on the outside, very, very dry and hard. It literally is almost impenetrable. You're developing a wonderful flavor, right? There's a little bit of funkiness going on inside the ribeye. It's also been dehydrated, hence dry aging. This, believe it or not, was cut from one exactly like that. You don't eat the outside, you don't eat anything that has the mold growth on it. It's still beautiful and soft on the inside. It does get that incredible flavor. By far, my favorite, dry age. There's a couple of important things that you need to do before it goes on the grill. I took this out of the fridge about an hour before I'm going to cook it. It's called tempering the steak. It means you're not going to get red in the middle, grey on the outside. It's going to be perfectly pink all the way through. Season the outside really generously, just with kosher salt. Pepper on a live fire will burn. You don't want that burnt pepper flavour. You can pepper it at the end. When we cook steak at Gwen, we have a really interesting technique because most people tell you to turn the steak once. We continually rest the steak during the cooking process. We start it for maybe 60 seconds on each side and remove it and sit it on a rack and allow it to rest for 5 minutes. Once those juices have redistributed through the steak, we bring it back to the grill and we give it another 60 to 90 seconds on each side, then another 5-minute rest. We continue that through the cooking process and we'll end up with a perfectly pink ribeye. You want to cut with the grain or directly against it. You never want to cut through it on an angle. You will make it tougher to eat. There's not a pool of juice on my board. That resting process allows all of those juices to redistribute through the meat and it stays in the steak and not all over your cutting board. Oh man, that is a beautiful way to cook a steak, I've got to tell you. Check out this baby. This is fennel. There's a way to use it all and I'll explain it to you. If you go through and remove some of this leaf, it smells and tastes very similar to dill. So you can use that and chop it up. When it comes to the actual bulb, if you cut straight on through it, you now give yourself a nice flat side that you can prep. Run it through a mandolin. Those beautiful super thin slices, it gives you wonderful texture. One method is to salt it, right? Wash the salt off after an hour and then throw a hot pickle over it, which is 1, 2, 3. 1 part vinegar, 2 parts sugar, 3 parts water. Great with smoked salmon or any sort of shellfish. So the bulb you can thinly slice. The leaf you use in place of dill. And any of these big stalky parts, that's good to make a stock. Or you can go ahead and use this as a bed to roast your meats and fish over. Delicious steam, just the way they are. That's a very Californian way. Just cutting the base off here, steaming the whole thing. But the really beautiful thing about an artichoke is the actual choke itself. I'm going to show you how to get to it. You need a big, strong knife that you can get up on top of and go right through. Trim it up so it's nice and flat. Then hold onto the base. You're going to go around the artichoke and remove these outer leaves. Come in and you're going to turn the artichoke around like that. Work kind of quickly because it will oxidize. So you don't want to spend too long because you'll end up with a brown artichoke. This is the center. We got to take that out because this is the part that's inedible. Right, and you've got yourself a perfectly turned artichoke. This is where all the flavor is. That is now ready to cook. You're probably going to do quite a few when you turn them. So the best thing to do is drop them into some acidulated water. So just water with some lemon juice and that will keep them from turning brown. And that's the best way to keep them until you're ready to cook. Take a good long look at my leek. I love this vegetable. They're a little tricky to clean though, so let me give you a couple of tips. The green, you don't really use very much unless you're making a stock. This white part is the really special bit. Get yourself a nice sharp knife and just start at the top and slice all the way through the heart of that leek. Now, I can look and see all of that sand. I leave the root on, go under the tap. I can sort of play that like a deck of cards, get the water running in between them, and that way you get perfectly clean leeks. The most common way to use it is just to slice it straight across. There's no sand showing up to your party. One of my favorite, and I think most underrated herbs. It will wilt quite quickly. But I've got a little tip. When you buy a bunch like this, I break it into pieces that I'm going to use it in. So they use now, they use later in the week, and they use next week. Mist some water over, some paper towel, take your fresh herbs, place them inside, and then just roll it up nice and tight. That will keep them fresh, so you'll get maximum life out of those herbs. Will probably double the usable time that you can use the tarragon for. You can see the leaf of the cilantro right there, but what I'm interested in is the flowers. Great for garnishing a salad, a raw fish dish, even a big old steak. The flower has a slightly more mild flavor than the leaf. So if you like the flavor of cilantro, but you don't want to use a big old leaf, serve the flower. Best way to know you're getting a nice fresh tomato is actually the green. If that's old and dry, probably been picked a while ago. If it's beautiful, vibrant and green, then it's probably pretty fresh. You can also kind of tell the ripeness of a tomato by smelling it. The stronger the aroma, the riper the tomato will be. Excuse me. Peas have to be one of my favorite ingredients. There's two ends, one where it was attached and the other where the flower was. Snap it, and then you peel that little piece of string off the pea. Is it absolutely essential? Yeah, I don't want that stuck in my teeth. That is really quite fibrous. You want to peel the stringy bit off your peas. Now the thing about the snap peas is they cook so fast. If you have water at a boil, 15 seconds, that's it. If you toss them into a stir fry, into a hot wok, maybe a minute or two and they are ready to go. You can even eat them just like this. Fantastic. While we might consider these wild mushrooms, I can tell you with absolute certainty they were grown in a hothouse and they weren't grown out in the woods where they would come into contact with all sorts of things that would need them to be cleaned. So when you find these varieties that are grown in a hothouse, you don't have to worry too much about washing them. If you wash mushrooms in water, the porous nature of a mushroom is it will absorb the water. If your mushroom absolutely needs a wash, get yourself a damp cloth, that works. If you were buying from a forager or you were collecting mushrooms yourself, you might want to brush it with a pastry brush and even use a toothbrush to sort of get into some of those hard to reach areas. You can always feel your board. Was there any sand in there? No, that was actually pretty clean and pretty simple. Mushrooms are delicious. Once you know how to clean them, you'll be using them all the time. If you're going to spend lots of money on truffles, you need to know how to store them. If you leave them in a container, eventually they will become wet and they'll become slimy. Wrap each one individually in some paper towel. So each day that you have these in the fridge, you're going to change that paper, you're going to re-wrap it, and then pop it into a little container. Another thing that we will sometimes do is keep them on rice because the truffle aroma will scent the rice, or keep them with eggs because eggs have a porous shell. The flavor and aroma of the truffle will go through the shell of the egg and your eggs will taste delicious like truffles. How do I put together a beautiful cheese board? I always think getting 3 distinct varietals of cheese is really important. I've got an Alpine style aged cheese over here. I've got a triple cream for those cream lovers. And then I've got my goat's cheese log down the end. Make sure you serve them at the right temperature. Let them temper for about half an hour before you serve them. The other thing that's important about selecting great cheeses is knowing how to cut them. So the Alpine cheese is really quite strong in flavor, so you want to cut it into really thin slices, just like that. You want to slice all the way along the cheese so you get some of that milky center and some of that thicker, richer flavor from the outside. If you cut a big, thick piece of that cheese, it would be way too rich. Next, I have a triple cream. So what you want to do with a cheese like this is serve it in wedges. Some people will warm their knife, that'll allow it to go through the cheese quicker. But what you want to do is quite quickly punch your way through the cheese. See how it's still kind of chalky right there in the center? That hasn't fully ripened, but the outside of the cheese looks much softer, almost a little gooier, and that is because the cheese is ripening. We want to make sure that we get a piece of that mold with the interior of the cheese, which is why you're going to cut through in wedges like this. We'll be able to pick up a piece of cheese and eat it from side to side. And that is the perfect balance for a triple cream. Oh, doggy, that is good. Goat's cheese is very soft. It will be quite delicate, which is why we use a wire. Just pressing straight through the cheese like that. You can also just line it up from the top and go straight through. Because the wire has virtually no drag, it is certainly the simplest way to cut those lovely discs of what is otherwise a very, very soft cheese. The best way to cook eggs. My favorite way is sunny side up. I'm using a non-stick pan, and you'll notice I haven't got the pan too hot. If the pan is too hot, you're going to cook the egg from the bottom up too quickly. So that's why it's got to be on a pretty low heat. Let that butter turn slightly brown. You're going to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then I'm going to finish it with some of this white truffle on egg. There's just nothing better than that. Before you take it out of the pan, while it's still hot and bubbly, take your truffle. You don't need a lot. Lightly go over the top. Make it rain. Whenever someone in a restaurant comes and talks to you while they're shaving truffles, distract them. Try and confuse them. Then they'll just keep on shaving. It's the way you get the most out of the person. And I don't know about you, but everything I've ever learnt in the kitchen, there's not much that compares to this. I would die happy right now. I know these blocks of butter look very similar, but they couldn't be more different. This is a fresh butter, the one that you are used to buying from the store, and this one is a cultured butter. The difference is one takes long walks, read books, and visits museums. That was a stinker, and I'm sorry. A cultured butter is aged, actually has flavor developed. I've also got my favorite butter that I couldn't not show you. It's called Berta Barat. The flavor of this butter to me is really quite exceptional. Oh man, I'm serious. I could just slice it and eat it on a cracker. The regular butter you might want to use to melt in the bottom of your pan before you make your omelette in the morning. The cultured butter, that's a real specialty butter that maybe you want to eat just with some bread for a special dinner party. Invest in good butter. I've pulled together some of my favorite fats. I absolutely love using butter. It has a really low smoke point, so you can't just cook in butter if you want to cook on a high heat. Like a steak, for instance. You try and cook a steak in butter, the butter's going to burn every single time. The extra virgin hasn't had any heat brought to it. That's a wonderful finishing oil. Here's something that we used to cook in a lot, beef tallow. When it comes to cooking in animal fat, use the fat to cook the same type of meat. So if you're going to use duck fat, it's wonderful for cooking duck. If you're going to use beef fat, it's great for cooking steak. That said, duck fat roast potatoes, oh my Lord, it is really, really good. If I make Yorkshire pudding, I always use beef fat because I serve it with roast beef. Experiment with it. You get different flavors from cooking in different fats. I always think of food as a balance. Is it rich enough? Normally that comes through fat. Is it bright and acidic enough? Normally that comes through a vinegar or an acid. We actually use acids all the time. In every single vinaigrette or dressing that you've ever had, there would be some form of acid in it. There's really more there as a flavor enhancement. Vinegars bring beautiful brightness. Rice wine vinegar, a sherry vinegar, a champagne vinegar, raspberry vinegar, lemon juice. This is a bit of a different one. This is a Buddha's hand. Now, it looks really pretty. It doesn't have juice in it, so you're only really using this for the zest. Always have some ready, just a few drops into that pasta with crab or into that bolognese sauce will totally change the way you cook. Don't forget about the acids. Probably the most important tool that you have as a chef. You call that a knife? This is a knife. This is a beautiful big slicer. I have a smaller version of that, which is a utility knife. For a big cook's knife, you want it with a heel on it because your knuckles will be underneath that blade, so you want to be able to chop. You know, I've always got a knife in my pocket to open boxes. This little switchblade, I have no idea what it's for, but it's super cute. If I could just have one knife, I would go for something like this. That's a santuku. It's a great slicer, and it's also got a heel so you can use it to chop. And then, of course, not too thick so you actually don't have too much drag through the things you're slicing through. If you came into my restaurant and had a look in the fridge, you'd see all these containers with these little blue labels on. You're going to laugh at me, but I don't let my crew take that blue tape and just tear it off like this, because sometimes you'll get the corners missing on the tape. No. You need to label and date everything that goes into your fridge. If you're like me and you're just a little OCD, the tape also has to be torn perfectly. I know how embarrassing that is. Let me show you in the kitchen. This is the fridge, the most important room in the building. So everything's kind of sectioned off into different areas. So we have all of our juices and all of our elixirs in one area, all of our sauces in another. Everything's in its place. All the mise en place can be easily accessed. You know exactly what it is when you need it. If you want to organize your kitchen just like a chef does, get similar size containers, label them all, and have things put into sections. Cooking over live fire gives incredible flavor, but every type of wood will give you a different scent, aroma, and taste. I'm actually cooking with white oak. There's also wonderful cherry trees and apple trees here in California, so sometimes we'll burn those. The one thing all three of those woods have in common is it's relatively mild in flavor, but it burns nice and hot. They're the two characteristics we really look for. I know this sounds strange, but a chef spends most of his life standing on his feet, so you need real comfy shoes. And these are the ones I like. They're Birkenstocks, open heel, so if you need to kick them off in case you burn yourself, you can. That cork sole means that your back doesn't ache. I swear by it. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you, having you in my kitchen for the day. We've done a bunch of tips together. I hope you use them in your kitchen. All the best.